Good morning and welcome to Daughters of Distinction. I'm your host, Dr. Ernestine Brown, and you're in for a real treat today. I have with me today two phenomenal women, Dr. Marjorie Brown and Namyaka Payne. These ladies are both authors, and we're here today just to discuss their articles or their penmanship in this book, Intensify, Stories of Intensive Determination. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
And welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
I know we have a lot to talk about. We actually started to talk a little bit before the show, and I think we are ready to go. What about you?
Yes. Amen.
Yes. Good. Dr. Marjorie, why don't we start with you? You can introduce yourself to our viewing audience and just share a little bit about where you are today.
My name is Dr. Marjorie Brown, better known as Dr. Margie, the Explosive Cultivator. Okay. I am an author. I am an international speaker, and I was given a great opportunity to participate in this author program. We were actually challenged by our coach in Rock Your Stage Speaker Initiative, Cheryl Wood, to prepare a book and write a book by June of 2015. She challenged us in March. Oh, wow. And Marisha Sherman, who is a part of that program as well, she is the brainchild of this author program. She actually opened up this program and invited us to come in and really spread the table and welcomed us into this program in high quality of excellence. And this is the result of our efforts.
That's great. That's great. Namyaka, why don't you share a little bit with the audience about yourself?
Sure. My name is Namyaka Payne, better known as Intensified Winner. I absolutely love to win contests, but I'm so thankful for this opportunity to share my story. It started out as a child, but not knowing that 20, 30 years later, I still had a childlike mentality that trickled over into adulthood. And so when this opportunity came about, I had met Marisha maybe 2 years ago. And the more you run in the circuit of entrepreneurs and women who empower each other, her spirit meshed so well with mine that I could not ignore this opportunity. But I'm thankful that through this, I'm able to share with women that through your failures, you're actually winning. And when you show up, you've already won.
That's great. That's great. Now, when I read your stories, what impressed me about your story, Namyaka.
Yes.
Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I don't want to butcher your name.
Yes.
I was impressed because you talked about from a young age, and I believe that was the age of 11.
Yes.
There was a contest that you had entered.
Yes.
A running contest.
Yes.
And I think you said you looked on your sides. I can't remember what side, and you didn't recognize that face, but you looked to the other side and you recognized that face, and that was the face of your sister.
Yes.
And at that point during that race, it sounded as if you were flooded with so many emotions that kind of set the stage for your existence. Tell us a little bit about that point.
Right. What actually happened was we were in grade school, and I remember I was the fastest. I was the fastest at everything that I did. So running came naturally to me. And when I found out that I had to compete against my sister, it was like, but this is my family. You know, she's there to protect me, to love me, to help me. So instantly, I didn't know, should I take this opportunity to win or should I take this opportunity to lose? But it didn't matter, because for me to show up and to be in that place, be there for myself, I knew I had to do it, whether win or lose. I didn't know what was going to happen. And so as we continued the race, like I said, I didn't recognize the face at all. It was just somebody that was put in a competition with us. So it was like, naturally, I'm going to compete, but with your family, it shouldn't be a competition. It should be a togetherness. And so as I continued on with the race, I realized she was going to win, but I was going to lose. But I had to settle for myself. Am I winning for me or am I winning for her? And I'm thankful that the Lord allowed that opportunity for me to lose, because I never would have experienced my first loss to realize that when you lose and you're standing in your purpose, you're winning when you show up. So I was thankful that I lost to my sister because it gave me a greater love for her, because that was her moment.
Absolutely. Expand a little bit on more on that. I like that. You said when you're in your purpose,
Yes.
and you lose,
Yes.
you're actually winning.
Right.
Talk a little bit more about that.
I didn't realize it until maybe about 2 years ago. And this started when I was 11. So mind you, 20, 30 years later, I'm standing in my 30s, almost the halfway mark to 40, realizing that my purpose, I wasn't living in my purpose. It was like, okay, I'm doing this for my mom or my dad or my brothers and sisters, or I'm doing this to just feel like, okay, somebody needs for me to win, but then there's also somebody who needs me to lose. And it was like realizing that award wasn't the defining stage. It was realizing that awarding myself this opportunity to know myself, to be like, wow, here you are 33 years old and you're actually finally living and actually showing up on purpose. So now when I get opportunities such as this, it's for me, but it's to let other women know, just show up. Your opportunity is there, but you have to show up. You have to
great.
show up for yourself first.
That's great. It's interesting to hear you say that, because many studies have been done from a psychological point of view on the effects of childhood issues into our adulthood. And I think it's very important for women to know that regardless of your age, whether you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, there are things that still can affect you that you must even continue to address during those age. And a lot of times it's happened to me. I'm a little bit over that 50 line, and I'll deal with something. God will deal with something within me, or something that has happened to me, and I get to a point where I feel as though I'm good. I'm good right now. And then all of a sudden something will happen and trigger something else. And it's this continuous healing, this continuous restoration that takes place throughout our lives. I used to laugh a lot and say, God, was I that damaged that I'm still going through this healing process? But I think people should know that the healing process is a continuous process, because we could get to a place where we're so tired of going through changes or transitions or metamorphoses, and we want to quit. But I encourage women not to quit, just to continue, because the whole purpose of it is to find the treasure within you. You are a treasure. God made you a treasure. And as you continue this journey, you become that treasure that God made you. That's very
right.
good. Dr. Marjorie,
Yes.
I read your story, and your story was just an awesome story of a young lady, and I'm going to let you share the bulk of it, but just all the pain that you were faced with, and how that created who you were, and the things that it brought about, and the actual emotions that you had to deal with to be a healthy individual. Why don't you share a little bit with the audience about your story?
Thank you, Dr. Brown. My story begins in 1988. I started writing this story
Oh, wow.
as a sermon, and I was stuck. And it took me so long. I would write a little bit, never preach the sermon, never knew where I would present it, when the time would be for it to be released. And here comes this opportunity to intensify my groove. So after we're searching for a title to define the book, first of all, we have the collaborative, which the wonderful authors that we have join together to tell just a piece of our story,
Yes.
then as part of the author program, we get to write our own book, which is a part of that package. So the story in the collaborative is called The Darts That Pierce My Heart. And the story that I will be writing or releasing, in September will be Painstaking Experiences
Wow.
and a Pain-Breaking God.
Oh, my.
And I sort of aligned it with the story of the woman with the issue of blood, who for 12 long years suffered at from the effects of her bleeding and her hurt and no self-love and low self-esteem and ostracized and not being ceremonially clean and so on and so forth. And I brought that back to me because I grew up as an adult child of an alcoholic. It was hard for me to say that. There really is no shame and no guilt in that. My father happened to be the alcoholic in our home, and he found that alcoholism was escapism. That was where he dived his pain, where he dived into alcohol to end his pain. I was molested at the age of 10 years old. There was a rejection involved. There was no self-love, low self-esteem. And it was really hard for me to unmask. So the first part of my book talks about the masked pearl. And I call myself Pearl because that's my name. That's what my name means in the Greek, Marjorie. My mama named me Marjorie after my maternal grandmother, and it means pearl. And now I wear pearls all over the place. But I talk about in my chapter from the masked pearl to the transformed pearl to the priceless pearl. And those darts that pierced my heart, they were there. Oftentimes, Dr. Ernestine, they felt like daggers. That's why I call them darts. That literally felt like they were puncturing my heart. And I even went through a bout of depression. And I didn't feel that I was able to bring it out vocally. So I did things. We get involved in the church. We get involved in other things instead of dealing with the confrontation of the pain. And I had to come to the reality, if you will, that there is pain. This pain exists. I've shouted through it. I've sung through it. I've directed the choir through it. But still the pain exists. I could leave church after a wonderful service, but you know what that equated to? I didn't have a strong, bona fide relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. Once I came to know him and understand who he was to me and who I am to him, then I could process through my pain. And then we have to understand that our life and the role that we play in life and what God designed us to be and who we're created to be, it ain't about us.
Right.
It's about him. And somebody is going to glean, going to grow, going to understand that if you were delivered from your pain, from your crisis, from the crucible of your crisis, as I say, then he can do the same thing for you. And there are many people that I've shared this story with, not knowing that it would, bless them, that it was their story as well. But I unleashed, unlocked, and unmuted my voice, and I'm speaking loud now. I'm not hiding anymore because it has literally brought me out to become a new person, to face the person, the pearl that God created me to be.
That's great.
And I'm fine, fabulous, and fueled with
Yes,
fire.
you are. I can tell. I can see and I can tell. Dr. Marjorie, that's very interesting, and as I hope we'll get to talk a bit more about some of these issues as we proceed through this show, because what I've learned over the years, and I grew up in the church. I tell people it's just my little sense of humor. I tell people when I was born, when in the old days they said the baby was born and the doctor would smack the baby and the baby would cry.
Right.
When I was born, the doctor smacked me and I spoke in tongues. So I've been in this journey a long time. And I think what's interesting, and the reason I say that, because within our church circles and our church world, we're taught to cover up. We're taught to mask. We're taught to pretend. It's not socially correct or religiously correct to tell all that has truly happened to you, because you have to have your sanctimonious
Absolutely.
faith, you know. And I think that this is a time of freedom. And I know Damali was supposed to be with hers, and her section of the book, The Collaborative, talks about freedom. But this is a time for freedom. This is a time for us to tell the truth. Because the truth needs to be heard. I'm a firm believer that whatever your life brought to you, wherever God delivered you from, there's a group or a nation of people waiting for you to open your mouth to bring them freedom. So we don't talk about these things, then folk are still going to be bound.
That's right.
And if we don't talk about these things, we're not living in our God-given purpose.
That's right.
And destiny. And people need to know that it's okay, especially when we talk about molestation and things of that nature. And as African American people, we were always taught to keep our business to ourselves.
That's right.
We don't share with the world what's going on in our homes. We're very private people. But I know even within the church system itself, that a lot of this stuff goes on, and nobody wants to talk about it. And if we're really going to be free and delivered, and those people whom God designs us to be a light, we have to come from out of this darkness by letting people know what's really going on with us. Because I too, as a child, was molested, and I tell you, I said when the doctor smacked me, I spoke in tongues. So my molestation took place right in the church.
Oh, my goodness.
Right in the church. I dare not call names. I dare not expose anyone. But I'm saying that so that I can free somebody.
Yes.
Who's been bound and is afraid to open your mouth and say what's really going on. That you can be free, and that God has someone that you can release things to that's going to listen at you. We need to listen to our young people. We need to listen to the cries of the heart. A lot of times what happens, and you ladies can feel free to join in at any time, is people develop these walls, these defense mechanisms.
Yes.
And then we look at that person and say, oh, that's an angry person, or that's a frustrated person. But it's a reason for that.
That's right.
I think we have to learn how to go beyond the surface and really get to know someone, just as you say, the part of the reason why you had those issues, because there really wasn't a relationship with God. Well, once we establish our relationship with God, then we need to establish relation. And I'm not talking about no fake relationship.
That's right. That's right.
I'm talking about genuine relationship. On one of the ministries I do, sister to sister, heart to heart, to the source. Okay, but the heart to heart is what I'm after right now. Because there are people who are hurting today that need to hear these stories.
Yes, they do.
They need to know that there's hope and that there's a way out of whatever they've been bound by. So I commend you,
Thank you.
For being able to take off the mask. I commend you for being able to share your story with the world. I commend you for being fabulous and all those other words.
Thank you.
Because we really do need the women of God and women in general just to stand up.
That's right.
It'll free. We'll know. We'll find out that somebody's been waiting to hear your voice.
And you'd be surprised, because we were talking earlier how you have dealt with recovery and restoration. And I worked in a residential drug treatment facility for 7 years. And you hear the stories of these women, and guess what? The men have the hurt and the pain too.
Absolutely.
Because they've been ostracized. They've gone through some things. They've been molested as well as children, didn't know how to identify or put some volume to it.
Right.
But it is true that men have been molested as well. So when I share, when I'm open, when I'm candid, when I'm transparent about who I really am, it makes it comfortable for them to come out. Now, it's not supposed to go any further, but we're supposed to stop and let's take and pay attention and go to the root of the problem. That's the problem.
That's it.
That I got saved when I was 12 years old. Filled with the Holy Ghost when I was 15 years old. But guess what? The shouting, the dancing, the speaking in tongues, going to the conferences, the council, the convention, church, concerts, that is not the answer.
Absolutely
God is a relational God.
Yeah.
He's an intentional God, and we have to come into that intensity. That's why Intensify Your Groove was so good for us, because even on our telephone calls, and Nyamka will confirm this, tears would come out on the telephone with just the conversations that Pastor Marisha led during the time that we were building up to release this book, because each and every one of us needed to unleash and unmask and turn the volume up on our voice, and you could hear it, and it was encouragement. Wouldn't you say so?
Definitely.
It was encouragement for all of us to be connected to one another. We found a new grace, a new love, a camaraderie, if you will, with these sisters. Shout out to all our Intensify Your Groove sisters, because we really bonded through this and still are connected and bonded. But people need to be truthful and honest with the pain that exists.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times they don't want to, because they feel like that if they do, they'll be ostracized. They feel like people will no longer like. And one of the things that I mentioned in the book, I always wanted to be a people pleaser.
Right.
Well, as long as I please God, Dr. Ernestine, that's all that matters to me. And that I'm in alignment with what He has set up for my life.
Absolutely. Nyamka, I think that was reference to, in your story.
Yes.
You made reference to having the circle,
Yes.
the right circle of people around you. That's very important.
Right.
You want to share a little bit about that?
Definitely. What I realized that I come from a family of 7, my mom from 14, so my circle has always been my family. So finding sources outside of that was unfamiliar to me. And even at church, you go to church, but sometimes when you're there to worship, you see the circles, you see the inner clique. So if you're a pastor's child, you automatically get deemed, or you're a PK kid. One of my quotes, we were also charged to give a variety of quotes for things that would go with your photos. We had a photo shoot, and one of mine was captioned, I may be a preacher's kid, but I don't want to be labeled as a preacher's kid. I was born into this. So this was a desire of my father. So being in a place where your father's a pastor, now your mom is a pastor's wife, you automatically get labeled and thrown in a circle of PK kid. You can't mess up. You can do no wrong. You can't sin. I could break a nail or cough funny, but because I'm a preacher's kid, oh, it's that preacher's kid, cough funny, or she broke her nail because she's a preacher kid. And I'm thinking, that has nothing to do with who I am. And now I'm not ashamed to say my father is a pastor, and I absolutely love that, because being in that circle, I'm covered under God. I'm not covered under the world. And so many times I was fascinated, oh, my friends are doing this and they're doing that and they're going here. But you don't know, hindsight 2020, it saved my life. It saved me from a very destructive life. I was just caught in between worlds. Do I please my father? Do I please my sisters? I'm not pleasing myself, but I forgot to see that God was the one that wanted me to see, this is who you are. You are Nyamka.
And we're going to hold it right there.
Yes.
We're going to come back. This conversation is just awesome, and we want to continue it.
Yes.
But we're going to come back, and if you would join us, we'll welcome you to come back. This again is Dr. Ernestine Brown. I'm your host, and this is Daughters of Distinction.
I'm Apostle Daniel Andrews.
And I'm Pastor Lynette Andrews.
We are the founders of New Birth Life Church, and we're excited to tell you about our new adventure, NBL Cafe, which began back in the beginning of the year.
We gather the first Friday of every month at 7 p.m. We are opening up our doors to the community so that people have a place to come to see Christian entertainment, fellowship, and yes, don't forget the coffee.
We are bringing the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ in a non-traditional setting. There will be all kinds of artists sharing their passions, including music, painting, dancing, comedy, drama, and yes, even guest speakers.
So come on out
Join us. Come and see what God is doing in this new season.
at NBLC.